What's going on, Royal Ones? We are here with part 10 of Meet Your Strawman. Why am I in an anonymous mask? Well, today we're going to start talking about dealing with the police. And with this mask, I'll remain anonymous. Don't worry about that picture up there of that guy, alright? That's just my twin. Wait. Alright, fuck the mask. Let's get into this goodness. I'm going to teach you all how to shaft the police without actually shafting the police. Telling them to basically go fuck themselves without actually telling them to go fuck themselves. So when I say dealing with the police, I am not talking about a band that sings Roxanne. Because years ago, a policeman was your friend and defender. Things have changed now that police forces have become commercial organizations dedicated to producing a profit by taking money from you in the form of speeding fines, parking fines, and any number of other charges. It was stated on national TV recently that in the last 13 years, 3,000 additional offences have been invented. As each individual police force is a commercial company, in a way like a McDonald's restaurant in strategy, it has no authority to enforce anything any more than a McDonald's does. The men and women who work under the banner of their local police force have two separate roles. When they take up their occupation, they take an oath of office, pledging to uphold the law. That oath, and nothing else, gives them the authority to act to enforce common law. That is, the few things which are listed near the start of the legalese section. It does not authorize them to do anything connected with so-called government statuettes. So they have been trained to use legalese to entrap uninformed members of the public. To be fair, it is highly likely that members of the police force are not aware of what they are doing and do not understand the difference between legalese statuettes, which are optional, and the lawful common law requirements, which apply to everyone and are not optional. And now please don't get me wrong, okay? Most policemen and policewomen, they do a great job, right? They assist members of the public, often above and beyond the requirements of their job. They'll be tasing people, they'll be pulling down someone for not wearing a mask, they're opposing bullying, intimidation, fraud, and they comfort cases of bereavement and injury. Admittedly, the commercial companies who control the police forces are working hard to end this sort of positive behaviour, using ridiculous health and safety regulations as an excuse, even to the extent that police officers are instructed to stand by and watch somebody drown and not attempt to save them. This is not the choice of the officer, but the instructions of the owners of the company. Because these thousands of invented offences don't apply to anybody unless they agree to be bound by them, it becomes essential for a police officer to possibly inadvertently persuade a member of the public to agree to pay invented cash penalties to the local commercial company called the police force. The normal first attempt to establish this spurious dominance of the police officer is by him asking for your name. This is not an innocent question, and it is essential that you are careful in what you say, as there are legalese booby traps all over the place. One suitable reply is, the law does not require me to provide that information, which is entirely correct and avoids pitfall number one. And no matter how often the question is asked, the answer is always the same. It is important not to argue with a police officer, as that is another legalese booby trap, which makes you subject to the thousands of hateful regulations designed to part you from your moolah. So, only answer questions, ideally, with a non-aggressive question, and do not volunteer any information. If the police officer says, "You were exceeding the speed limit," you could say, Was I? As you don't argue, nor do you say that the common law does not require anyone to keep to speed limits, obey road signs, park only where directed, etc., even though that is perfectly true, the maxim here is arguments are for fools. As mentioned before, if the police officer asks, "Do you understand?" your response should be, "No, I do not stand under you in this matter." As before, the question is a legalese trap and has nothing whatsoever to do with understanding anything which is being said. Under common law, an offence has only been committed if there is a victim, somebody who has been injured or killed, had possessions damaged or stolen, or who has been defrauded. So, if the police officer keeps pushing you to agree to pay his company money when you don't need to, then a good question to ask might be, who is the victim? An alternative is to ask, what is the charge, or am I free to go? If you stick to these things, then the police officer has nothing to work on, as you have not agreed to be bound by statuettes. You have not provided a name and address for him to write on an invoice, or fixed penalty notice, as they like to call it. And you have not entered into a controversy by arguing with him, or into dishonour by refusing him point blank. There is one other thing, and that is, without being aggressive or offensive in any way, you must not do anything which he tells you to do, because if you do, then those charming legalese people can see that you agree to stand under him and become subject to his legal but not lawful authority, and so become liable to those thousands of cunning plans called statuettes, carefully crafted in order to rob you in a perfectly legal but not lawful way. One thing which any police officer needs to become aware of is the fact that they do not have any security provided by the police force which employs them. In any situation which does not involve common law, the police officer is on his own, acting as an individual contractor, and as such is wide open to action against him, either under common law, if he is acting unlawfully, or by civil court action, if his actions warrant it. If there is failure to establish joinder, which is where a human voluntarily agrees to represent the straw man and so become subject to statuettes, then the presumed authority of a police officer does not exist in any respect, and he is acting solely as an individual whose only authority is to enforce common law and serve cheeseburgers. Alright guys, there it is. That is teaching you how to shaft the police. Tell them to go fuck themselves without actually telling them to go fuck themselves. I hope you're all listening in. I've got love for everyone, and this is the journey toward freedom.